This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at a gaming laptop. This is the MSI GT60 Dominator. What a name, right? This is a 3K display model gaming laptop, 15.6 inches, quad-core CPU, NVIDIA GTX 870M graphics for some serious gaming performance. We're going to look at it now. So this is the MSI GT60 Dominator model. Specifically, it is the -474 model. It's also a -475, just a slight difference in graphics. We'll talk about that. 15.6-inch gaming laptop. Yes, it looks like a gaming laptop. It is sizable, it is chunky, it is aggressive looking. It is 7.7 pounds, so actually not so bad in weight, but keep in mind this is 15 inches versus 17 inches. $2,200 for this model, and I'll tell you about the configuration in a minute. And before you're thinking, well, I could have had an Alienware. This is 15 inches. Alienware doesn't make a 15 inch, so they're kind of serving a market that Alienware is at the moment ignoring. They have 14 inches, they have 17 inches, they have 18 inches, they don't have 15 inches, which is still a pretty mainstream size for laptops. As you can see right here, pretty darn beefy. Here is our ventilation, 3 USB 3.0 ports here, SD card slot. On the back side we have lots of display outputs. This is kind of cool and kind of different from a lot of laptops. Notice first, here's a ventilation hole right here, right? And then on the second side, it looks symmetrical, but these are actually non-functional. And that gets into the whole cooling aspect. Notice a fan over here. We'll talk about that later too. Anyway, display, pretty impressive here. HDMI, 2 mini display ports, gigabit Ethernet, and power. I like the power being in the back. I mean, why on earth would I want that on the side? It's not like I'm going to be plugging and unplugging it like I would a USB device, so that kind of keeps it out of the way. This side here, Blu-ray drive. Lots of audio jacks right over here. We have discrete microphone, we have headphone jacks, we got a USB 2.0 port in case you have some legacy peripheral that is kind of like, well, cranky and doesn't play nicely on USB 3.0. On the bottom, it's a little bit of a shocker. Removable 9-cell battery, that part's not shocking at all. So here we have, this bottom plate is removable. In fact, if you through the grill, you can actually see the hard drive, the 2.5-inch standard conventional hard drive in there. So you remove a bunch of Phillips head screws from here and you should be able to take this plate off. Notice that one of the screw holes has a warranty sticker, void if removed. Now, gaming laptops, people do generally like to open them up and upgrade them. You know, they've got space for some upgrades in here. There are two 2.5-inch drive bays, there's 2 RAM slots in here. So that's kind of weird. Now, country by country, apparently the answer varies from MSI about what happens if you take that off. A lot of people do carefully pry that off and they do their own upgrades, and supposedly MSI just saves that in case you did something really absurd, like, you know, poured coffee in there, stuck your screwdriver in where you shouldn't have stuck and broke something. That's up to you. Anyway, a little bit unusual there to see something like that on a gaming laptop. And obviously the thing is finished in black plastics with a little aluminum for the top panel here, and MSI's Dragon Gaming Series logo. Now, our review unit was provided by PowerNotebooks.com, and they can customize the offerings that you get in case you don't quite like what's in here. And we're going to be nice to them and not remove the bottom panel, so you're just going to have to take our word on it and check out what other people have said about the upgradable internals. But if we had gotten this from MSI, we would have ripped it apart so you could see the internals. As we open it up, we see the usual MSI look right here. This is not a touchscreen, by the way. And you can hear that fan whirring a little bit. So what's cool about this WQHD Plus IPS display, what's uncool is it is glossy. It's not reflecting too much right now, but for a gaming computer particularly, you know, I really like to have a matte display when possible, like the Asus ROG G750 line. But what can you do? Other than that, it's a very gorgeous display. Now, the resolution on that, again, is 2880 by 1620 in 15.6 inches. Chi Mei made the display panel, for those of you who follow such things. So a lot of resolution. Is it overkill for gaming? We're going to talk about that, too. You can probably hear the fan spinning up a bit now. Obviously, this is not plugged in right now, so we're just running on Intel HD 4600 switchable graphics. So it should be a little cooler and quieter. Remember mentioning the rear fan grills, how actually only one of them was functional? This is where I'm a little bit less impressed with their cooling compared to, say, the Asus Republic of Gamer line, which has really very intelligent 2 to 3 fan cooling and lots of ventilation holes. This guy, you're going to hear the fan. Often with gaming laptops, you don't so much. They have more room for cooling, so they don't need to have high RPM, noisy fans. Granted, this is 15, not 17 inches like a lot of the competition, so it does have a little less room to work with, but this guy can get pretty darn noisy. Notice the keyboard, the colors. This is a lot like Alienware. It comes with software for configurable zones, and there's touch strip up here, and one of them actually does control the backlight, and you can switch between different color schemes. You want it all nice and blue, you can have it nice and blue. You don't want it all, you can have it off. You can have it orange, and so on. Again, designed by SteelSeries. In terms of travel and ergonomics, chiclet-style keyboard, quite nice. In terms of layout, they try to customize it for gamers, so they move some things around, like we have the really large control key right here. One thing they did move on the other side, there's no Windows key here. Notice that? This is Windows 8.1 here, where the Windows key with Windows 8 has become much more important for getting to the home screen, for launching and finding applications, and it's just kind of crazy making that there is no Windows key here. They moved it to the other side. So yes, you do have it, it's just in the other location over here. So a couple little oddities, more for gamers, less for typists in that respect, but the rest of it is fairly normal. Obviously, you got your QWERTY keyboard right here. You got embedded number pad, very important for gamers. Delete key is a little bit far over and in an odd place over here. Again, more important for you folks who actually type with one of these. And that's where this is different. This goes for the all-out gamer. It's not so blingy as, say, a Toshiba Quasmio, but it's not like the Asus ROG G750 series, which kind of goes for both markets. There's somebody who needs a powerful workstation or something they might take to work versus somebody who just wants something that's gaming. So the Asus goes with a more conservative keyboard layout, for example, and a little bit more conservative looks. And we'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But first, let's also talk about the trackpad. So keyboard I like pretty well, other than the Windows key being moved. Trackpad is hideous. Teeny, really teeny, right? Pretty big laptop. Why do we have such a teeny little trackpad here? I really couldn't tell you, but it's not very enjoyable. They probably figured gamers use mice and game controllers, all sorts of things like that, so you're not going to be using it because certainly you wouldn't use this for gaming. It's not even the greatest thing for navigating Windows 8.1. Multi-touch gestures, iffy. I mean, you don't have much room for your fingers on here. And this Chrome mouse button bar right here, very slippery, so not much traction. Something I do like is you got your wireless indicators, your charging, your sleep status, your hard drive activity lights right there, right where you can see them, no hunting around to try to find them. Power button, unusual, kind of right up top, front and center right there, surrounded by the touch controls, and then we got our speakers over here. So it's a gaming laptop. You expect some pretty serious internals here, and you do get it. This has latest generation Intel Haswell quad-core i7-4800MQ, clocked at 2.7 gigahertz with turbo boost to 3.7 gigahertz rather, and it mostly achieves that turbo boost level. I really haven't noticed any thermal throttling on here for sure. This has the NVIDIA GTX 870M graphics, dedicated graphics card, 3 gigs of DDR5 graphics memory. That's Kepler architecture. Now for $100 more, you can go up to the Dash 475 model, and that will get you the GTX 880M. A little bit of improvement there, and you know, for $100, if you're already spending this much money, $2,200 versus $2,300, and you're into gaming, I would go for it personally. 16 gigs of DDR3L RAM. Now, how much RAM depends on the configuration you get. For example, say you want to save a little money because this guy is kind of expensive. You can get the 1080p model for $1,800. That won't have an SSD drive, but it will get you 12 gigs of RAM. $1,500 will get you 8 gigs of RAM and no SSD and a 1080p drive. So you get the idea. There's some various configurations for the GT60. Anyway, ours 16 gigs of RAM. It has 2 drives in here. It has a 128 gig SSD. Ours is made by Toshiba, and a Hitachi TravelStar 7200 RPM 1 terabyte hard drive. So lots of room for your media storage there. You could install games on there. I mean, games are pretty big. There's only so many you can put on a 128 gig SSD, given the fact that you've got to worry about things like the Windows installation takes up room, all that sort of thing. The laptop has a 720p webcam up here with dual microphones as well. And now let's compare the size a little bit so you get the idea of what you're getting into with this, or not having to get into, depending on how small you like to travel. But first, keep in mind that Powerful laptops need high watt, and that means large power bricks. So what you're getting into in terms of carrying also means that this, you got about 2 pounds of charger right here. If you drop this on your toe, you won't have to go to the emergency room, but you will not be saying nice things. It's a serious, large, beefy, heavy charger, as you would expect from a serious, beefy laptop. And now here we have the Asus ROG G750. So this is kind of like a more understated, it still kind of looks like a gaming laptop design, but you get the idea. Soft touch finish right here, inside. More staid, more multi-purpose kind of look, but a pretty killer gaming performance on there. 17 inches though, so for those of you again who want the 15-inch, here's the difference in footprint. There's also about 2 pounds difference in weight, 7.7 pounds, this one's about 9.4. So you get the idea. And now for your Sunday driver kind of gamers, you game sometimes, but you need your laptop for work. You have to carry it around a lot. Dell XPS 15. This is a thin and light. If you could have a 15-inch Ultrabook on steroids, that is basically what the XPS 15 is. This is also super high resolution display. It has some dedicated graphics, not nearly as high end. A lot thinner, significantly lighter, a little bit smaller footprint there. Most of the difference is going to be in the thickness. I mean, this guy is super skinny. But this has thermal throttling. It has to have some because it's a very thin design. Not so much room for cooling here. Lower end dedicated graphics card. It's really mid-range graphics card on here. So if you like some gaming, you don't have to have the highest resolutions and the highest quality settings, and you need to carry it everywhere and look kind of nice while you're doing it. There's the Dell XPS 15, but you're not going to get the kind of performance either that you're going to get out of this MSI GT60 or the Asus ROG G750. So let's talk about the display again, and this is available with this 3K display, or you can get it with the normal Full HD 1920 by 1080 display. It is a lovely display. It is a sharp display. It has great contrast. It's almost 300 nits of brightness, measured in at 291 nits of brightness, which is pretty darn good. Other than the gloss, I'm liking it a lot. But does that resolution make so much sense in gaming? To me, not so much. Given the amount of horsepower that we have inside of here in terms of the GPU and also the CPU, Full HD, if you like things on high and extreme settings in games, is where you're going to get the best performance. When you start going over 1920 by 1080 resolution in game, you might not be getting the frame rates that you would like. That said, I mean, some things like, Diablo 3, they'll just play just fine. The problem with these high resolution displays is sort of like, I have a BMW Z4. If I want to drive to my local Walmart 140 miles an hour, I could do that. But my 70-year-old neighbor with the 1986 Hyundai Accent is probably going to pull out the driveway and slow me down and make it not such a good experience. That's sort of the way Windows programs are. They kind of just drag down the fun a little bit. Now, the Metro apps, the Live Tile apps, they are just fine. They scale really well. It's sort of just like Mac OS does with high-resolution Retina displays. Everything looks very nice here. No problem. But when you get back to the desktop again, the desktop itself, this is set at 200% scaling right now. That's the default. That's how MSI ships it. And I could show you 100%. Everything would be just really micro tiny. You get the idea. It's still readable if you have pretty decent eyes, but nothing that you would enjoy. But here's what I'm talking about programs. A lot of Windows programs still really don't respect Windows high DPI settings, and they don't scale. This here is Origin. Now, those of you who are gamers, for better or worse, you do know what Origin looks like, right? Usually fills up much of your screen. You've got big menus. You've got all that stuff. Look how tiny everything looks. Even the login screen, you have to get kind of close and stare at the screen just to make sure you're typing in your right password and your login. And that's the challenge here. Now, if you're a graphics professional who needs all that resolution, you're working in Photoshop, it can make a lot of sense, certainly. You also might want to be using an external display to do that kind of thing, so it gets into that. So I leave that up to you as whether you just feel that it's really worth it to go with the 3K display or just stick with 2K. In terms of display quality, color accuracy was pretty good. Our color calibrator did not have to tweak the color balance too much. It was actually a little warm by default, which is unusual. Usually displays are kind of cool. Here you can see we have 74% of Adobe RGB. That's up there with the top laptop displays. That's quite good. And here we have 96% of sRGB. Again, very good. Certainly holds up well against the Asus Republic of Gamer G750 model there, which has a matte non-touch display as well. But otherwise, this one being glossy, you're getting nice colors here. And the nice thing about this guy is it's IPS, so wide viewing angles, and none of that TN kind of, you got to angle it just right or see some color shift like you do on the Asus. Now how about for benchmark performance? The numbers come in just where we expect them to, and they're very good. As you can see here, this is 3D Mark 11. In performance mode, 7279. That's quite good. Now if we move up to the extreme test, of course the number is going to be lower, but it holds up pretty well, 2323 there. PC Mark 7 is scored a 6249. PC Mark 7 loves SSDs. This has one, and that puts it about 1200 over Ultrabooks. Now, that's misleading because really PC Mark doesn't look enough at the CPU, in my opinion, or the GPU. But anyway, that's what the number is. For W Prime, it computed pi in a minuscule 8.07 seconds. That's about 1/3 the time it takes a Core i5 Ultrabook to do the job. So you get the idea. Core i5, Core i7, when you're talking about a full mobile CPU like this quad core right here versus an Ultrabook CPU, there's a huge difference in computational performance. Geekbench 3, likewise, the numbers are very high. That looks largely at your CPU performance. 3445 for single core test, 12,835 for the multi-core test. So it holds up well. It doesn't throttle. During our repeated benchmark tests here with 3D Mark 11, we had no problems whatsoever with throttling. Those numbers, by the way, are comparable to the Asus ROG G750 similarly equipped, which is as you would expect, and pretty laudable because this is a smaller casing, again 15.6 inches. They did manage to make the cooling adequate enough that it could run. Again, it is kind of on the loud side. Not annoying, not whiny or anything like that, but you'll just hear it pretty darn beefy. So how about audio quality? We have our video review, first look of the Microsoft Surface Pro 3 video up, and you can hear the speakers. Not wildly bassy. Again, it is, even though it's beefy, thick kind of laptop. It's a 15-inch laptop, but some people have complained about the volume. I don't think it's that bad at all, given the size of the machine. You can launch OneNote. Sorry, it doesn't function as an eraser. Works obviously for looking at things on screen, or you could use your finger too. So let's talk specs first. So that sounds like me, right? Also, the quality of the screen is very nice. So the speakers are not bad at all, and you serious gamers are probably going to put some gaming headset on anyway, so not to derange anybody that you live with or anybody next door even. Last but not least, there's battery life. This is a gaming laptop. This is not really geared towards long battery life, but that said, Intel Haswell really brings that great battery life improvement that we've noticed on all laptops, and it does have switchable graphics, so you can switch to the HD 4600 integrated graphics. Again, removable battery, 9-cell on the bottom here. 9-cell sounds pretty big. It translates into about 4 hours of mixed use. I don't mean gaming use. I mean, say you're going to use this, actually you're a college student, you're going to write some papers on this, maybe do a little Photoshop editing, hit up Netflix, watch some gaming demos, something like that. That's what I mean for battery life. So about 4 hours or so. Now if you want to use this unplugged for gaming and you enable the NVIDIA dedicated graphics card, you'll get about an hour or so of gaming time there. So that's the MSI G Series gaming laptop, 15.6 inches, the GT60 Dominator. We will, as I said, have a gaming demo video, so have no fear for those of you who want to see games in action. That will be coming up next. So who's this laptop for? Well, duh, I guess it's pretty obvious. This is mostly for gamers. It has the looks that a gamer would want. It has the kind of graphics card a gamer would want, really geared towards gaming. Not as much CAD, though. It could do an okay job with CAD. And obviously, it's for those of you who don't mind carrying a thick 7.7-pound laptop around. It's not an Ultrabook, it's not even close, but you do get more computational power inside and more gaming prowess than you would expect from most any 15.6-inch laptop. So that's the MSI GT60 Dominator gaming laptop. Among MSI's gaming laptops, one of the more interesting ones for the 3K display and the 15-inch size, like I said. For a gaming machine, it's also kind of portable. If you're looking for a real serious power in a 15-inch size and you like the kind of boy racer looks, it could be for you. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.